Hello and welcome to the Real Health Conversations podcast. I am your host, Holly Jean, and we are recording the 500th episode of the show. And with us to celebrate today is Leanne Vogel. Hi, Leanne.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'll tell everyone. I think since you've been a guest on the show a few times, I think people know who you are, but I will give you a little intro here. So Leanne is a certified holistic nutritionist. She's a functional blood chemistry specialist, and she has been in this wellness space, nutrition space, since 2007. She is OG. She helps women using a ketogenic diet to balance their hormones. She specializes in root cause, things such as parasites, mold, metal toxicity, and she does this all using standard blood work. She is an international bestseller, so stick around because we're going to come back to the books. But she has also the Keto Diet Podcast. She works with clients all over the world. This woman is doing it all. You can find her at healthfulpursuits.com. Okay, that was a lot. Welcome, Leanne.
It's a lot to say. It's a lot to live. I've done a lot of things, and I like the OG title as opposed to dinosaur because that's like how I feel sometimes. I'm like, I am no longer in my 20s, and everyone's doing these cool things. It took me like 4 years to finally muster up the courage to make a reel, and now it's like the coolest thing ever. So I'm just behind in things, I feel like.
Well, they have that reel audio going around now that talks about, like, I was born in the 1900s, so I'm your elder. It's like, oh my gosh, in the 1900s.
We're in trouble.
Yes. So you have been on the show quite a few times. Your first time was in 2016. So a lot has changed since 2016.
So much has changed.
Yeah, we're going to dive into that because that's what I want this episode to be. I want to talk about how things have changed in the nutrition space, the wellness space, what's going on online now when it seems like everyone's a health coach or every influencer is a health coach too, and getting information. But first, since this is a celebratory episode, I want to start off right away with a giveaway. And to win this giveaway, these are the rules. You need to leave the show a review on Apple Podcasts. You need to screenshot it, share it on Instagram, and then tag Real Health Conversations Podcast. And the first person to do this right now, unless you're driving, the first person to do this will win one of Leanne's books. She has two awesome ones. There's Keto for Women, and there is the Keto Diet, which is like a keto Bible. It has everything in here. So if you win, you get to pick which one you want, and I will send it to you. So that is our first giveaway. Okay, so let's dive right in. 2016, but you've been in it, like we said, since 2007. So looking back, how has things changed? I mean, I know that's a big question. What do you think is the biggest change that you have seen from when you've started to where we are now in the world of nutrition?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it a little bit with everyone being an influencer and everyone being a health coach. Like when I started nutrition in 2007, I didn't even have a website. Like you just didn't really need a website. It was just by word of mouth. And in 2010, I set up my blog just to share recipes with my clients. And over the time, it was recipe blogs were really big back then. You would go and you would find the recipe and there wasn't many ads and there was a lot of sponsors more so. But now you go to a food blog and you're like, there's an ad there and an ad there. And it's just like so much. It's like, I just want a recipe. So I think like food blogs and just the art of food photography and stuff has changed so much in just looking for food that you want to feed your family and just thinking of the food trends. Like I know when I graduated in 2008, vegan plant-based was like really big. Nobody was talking about low carb, keto, none of that. And just to kind of see that transition. And I rode that wave of keto being really, really hot. I think now it's kind of shifting to more carnivore diets, sort of to like more whole food based situation, and kind of the rotation of that. Root causes and functional blood chemistry is really coming on the scene of people just finally fed up of chasing symptoms, of realizing that now like your food can't be the only reason why you're not feeling well, because we've all tried paleo, vegan, Whole30, keto, carnivore, and we still feel the same. So I think people are starting to wake up to the fact that maybe it's not about the food, maybe it's the environment. And I really see that being the new kind of shift of thinking of like, what kind of water are we drinking? Are there radioactive elements in that water? The 5G issue and EMFs and just our overall space, air quality, the toxins in our food supply and the toxins in our beauty care products. And so we're starting to think more on a scale of our environment and really a macro scale of what we're being exposed to. And so it's been an interesting transition, but I think throughout that, there's been more and more and more noise. Like you go on Instagram Reels or wherever you get your information, and this person's saying to do this, and this person's saying to do that. And it really gets confusing if you don't know what your body needs. And that's really why I love blood chemistry, because the cells don't lie and they'll tell you exactly what they need. And then you can go la, 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 not listening to the rest of the information out there that just doesn't apply to you right now. So that's kind of what I've seen shift.
Yeah, I think I've seen, I mean, obviously the same things going on, but I like how we are in kind of a place now where people are just really kind of going back to the basics. And it's like, yes, your diet plays a role, but it's more about making sure you're being nourished and eating in a way that supports your body. And focusing on your sleep and your stress and all those other things instead of chasing the next diet or being so hardcore into, well, I'm keto, I have to be keto and I'm only keto and I can't ever change. Speaking of, so your own health journey has kind of changed a little bit. And I know you've spoken about it a lot on your podcast. Because you still have the keto podcast, but are you keto now? Or are you not? Or where are you right now? Yeah. I mean, Leanne, can you define yourself?
No, don't make me do it. So I was diagnosed with a pretty serious pathogenic parasite at the latter end of 2019, early 2020. And this is a parasite that can kill you. It was taking over my liver and my lungs and my bowels, and it was not good. And so I kind of like looked at what he needed to do, and it didn't fit into the keto template. And I was like, I need to eat like 60 different types of plants a week. I need to increase my carbohydrates. I need to lower my fat. And so there were a bunch of things that needed to happen. So I decided at that point to commit business suicide and go online as the Keto Diet Podcast host and best-selling author of all the keto books and say, I can't eat keto right now. So a lot of people were upset. And unfortunately, that's the thing. Like you play this dance between being an influencer, right? And just being a professional. Like if you go to your naturopathic doctor, do you care what kind of diet they're eating? No, you don't care. You just want them to help you. Right. And so I think, when I've always tried to separate out what Leanne is experiencing and what I'm really good at coaching through and helping people with. And I love the ketogenic diet. I dabble in it now that I don't have a parasite and I'm not, dealing with that. I dabble in it here and there, probably maybe like 3 or 4 days a week. I'm pretty strict keto just naturally. But I think what we need to understand too is like not one thing will work for you for the rest of your life. The reason why I started a ketogenic diet back in 2014 is because I didn't have a period and I wanted to get my period back. And in 2015, I got that period back. And then I continued to eat keto for almost 5 years. And then finally was like, okay, well, the reason I started a ketogenic diet was to get my period back. I got it back. My hormones are awesome. So I can totally shift things. And so now I'm fully fat adapted. I can fast. I can eat breakfast, lunch, dinner. I can have a little bit of carbohydrates. I would say overall, I'm probably sitting around 100 grams of carbs a day. That's still pretty low carb. And then there's days where I don't have a lot of carbs. Today was not one of those days, but yesterday was. And so, yeah, I think it's really important as Leanne to follow my body, but as a coach and a professional and a nutritionist and a functional blood chemistry specialist, I need to know a lot of things about a lot of things. And so that doesn't negate my knowledge to help people. It's like kind of that balance that we play of the two things.
You know what? I honestly think that makes you a better coach and better equipped to help people because you understand that a body is always changing, and what works for you at one point in your life might not be what works for you down the road. And to be able to recognize that in yourself, and then also to be able to recognize it in your clients and coach them through that as well too. Like, I think that is more valuable to be able to meet people where they are and to have that flexibility. And as you said, now you're more metabolically flexible and fat adapted. And isn't that really the ultimate goal for everyone?
Yeah, totally. Like, do you actually want to eat keto for the rest of your life? Like, sorry, I don't. Like, I like sweet potatoes. I like birthday cake. Like, I want to be able to live my life. And I think too, it's like a big part of this is asking yourself, why are you doing this? If it's to be metabolically flexible, we can do that without being the same every day. The amount of anxiety and things that we can receive when we're on a strict diet for the rest of our life. I mean, we're saying no to invitations to hang out with friends, and there's a delicate balance. Of course, if you are ill and there's something going on, sometimes there's times, like if I'm dealing with a chronically ill individual who's lived in mold, I'm going to say, like, your diet needs to be dialed in. Like, if you want to get this out of your body, we have to be cognizant of what we're doing. And there was a time for me with the parasite stuff where I had to be really mindful. But we need to bend and flex with our body, and your body's going to need different things at different times, whether it's different times of your cycle or different seasons of life when you're dealing with certain chronic issues. Yeah, it's important to listen to that.
Yeah. It's like, so, I mean, our show, it started as low carb conversations. It was very much paleo, keto heavy, intermittent fasting. There was all that in subject matter. But as Leah and I both grew, like in our own personal health journeys and in our practice and in our relationships with food and how we view health and nutrition, like the show content evolved too. Like, we realized that, yes, a low carb diet, a paleo diet, a keto diet works when it works. And while we both still believe that most humans do best with like a lower carb or whole food based carbohydrate lifestyle, not ultra processed heavy carbs all the time, we also know that low carb is not the answer for all people at all times. And so, so that's why we changed the name too, because it's like, we're not just low carb anymore. Like, I think health and nutrition is so much more than that. I feel like I'm seeing less like biohacking, like extreme biohacking and gimmicky things going on. They're fun and interesting, and I do like watching them, but I think they bring a lot of confusion into the space too, because people are thinking, oh, I need to be doing ice plunges and wearing blue blockers. And not that I have anything against those, but that's not, if you're someone who's just looking to change your diet and get healthier, like, that's not where you start. Like, let's start with just like dialing in the diet. What is your best advice for someone who is just trying to filter out the noise?
Yeah. Okay. Your water, look at your water. Like, of all the things you're doing on a daily basis, hopefully you're drinking water. If you're not, start. And it's so important to check your drinking water. If you're drinking from well water, I would highly suggest testing it thoroughly to check its quality, because the amount of stuff in that water is concerning for a lot of places. The best kind of water is distilled water. It's going to be free of everything. And then you add minerals in manually. It's really important to add the minerals in. So that's number one, check your water, because you drink more water, hopefully, than you do food. So it's important for that to be dialed in. Second piece, if you're just starting out, and maybe you're starting out, or maybe there's just a lot of noise and you don't even know kind of which way is up at this point, a really good way to kind of determine how your body's responding to food is a glucose test. So you can get like a little pinprick test, like test kit at the pharmacy, and just see how your glucose is before and after meals, before you eat, and then an hour after you eat, and 2 hours after you eat, and do this for a couple of meals to just get a sense of how you're responding to your meals. Ideally, from the time like before you eat to 2 hours after, you kind of want those numbers to look similar. within a couple of points. And so if you're able to recuperate from that, then you know the meal you ate was pretty good. If you aren't, then you know that you need to make some shifts. That is a big thing. It probably costs maybe $30 to do for a couple of days, and you can get a lot of information from it. And number 3 is stop buying supplements based on recommendations on like Instagram and podcasts and stuff like that. And I say that having been like partnered and sponsored by supplement companies. And, you know, it's really this tricky thing. I think things like magnesium are great. And if you want to try supplements just to see how you feel, great, but don't expect them to be like the missing link to all of your problems. Because oftentimes when I onboard a client, I'm looking at their supplements. I'm like, what made you even think to try this? Like where? And they're like, you know, well, I tried this. I'm like, that makes sense. How long have you been on this? And they're like, I don't know, like 3 years. You know, I think we have this misconception around supplements of them having to stick around like our little buddies forever and ever and ever. But a supplement is just meant to supplement for a period of time while you address a certain thing. And so I think kind of getting out of that mindset of like, if I just find the right supplement or combination of supplements and I take them forever, everything will be okay. I think that's a huge misconception. And it's something that I really struggled with. In fact, some of my videos from like 2016, 2017, I'm like sharing all these supplements that I take and how great they are. And I look back and I'm like, what was I even thinking? Like I shouldn't have been taking that for that long. So I think that's another piece is like, stop wasting your money on a bunch of those things that you probably don't even need. And just choose like your top 3. Choose your top 3. That's really all you need if you're not addressing root causes, is like 3 supplements you really, really love.
Yeah. And I think that mindset's kind of hard to shift from too, because we have it so ingrained of like a pill for every ill. And we have such a heavy pharmaceutical culture that even if you're making the switch into doing something more holistic or functional or looking for root cause, we still have that habit of, oh, well, I can take something for that, or I can take something for that. So it is really a mindset shift that needs to happen. And I would say, yeah, to me, it is a red flag when you go to someone and they just want to give you a bunch of supplements. Because it's just playing whack-a-mole at that point. It's like, okay, so you've swapped pharmaceuticals for supplements.
Yes, completely. It's totally the whack-a-mole game. And I think when you need a spreadsheet to track the types of supplements you're taking and when you're taking them, like I have a personal limit in every protocol that I make for a client to stick to 6 supplements that we're rotating. Sometimes if we're addressing pretty serious stuff like mold and parasites and stuff, it might get up to 11, but like I cut it down at 11. I'm like, we are not doing more than 11. And so often I get clients that are pretty complicated cases. Like I will say there's a lot going on and they've worked with other practitioners. And I mean, I've looked through Excel spreadsheets like that have 50 cells, like 50 rows of just things. And it's like, you're exactly right. We're just chasing symptoms at that point. And you shouldn't need to take 4 different supplements for your adrenals. Like we're missing the point if that's the case. And I think that allopathic structure of just, if I have this symptom, then I take this thing, but we have to understand herbal remedies apply to so many different things. Like berberine is not only good for H. pylori, it's also good as an antimicrobial. It helps with glucose. It helps with parasites. I mean, there's so many different uses for berberine. So if somebody has H. pylori and parasites and dealing with glucose issues, instead of putting them on 3 different supplements, why not just give them berberine? And so I think it just takes that understanding and knowledge. Because a lot of times we're taking things that we just don't need, and it's so much overkill, and we're spending so much energy and time and money on these resources that just aren't working. So it really is a mindset shift. I know it was really hard for me when I was like, what do you mean I shouldn't be taking my fish oil anymore? But it's like just getting into the groove of like, what is my goal right now? What am I trying to achieve? And what are the like 6 supplements I need to achieve that? And what are the lifestyle items that I need to achieve that? And how does my diet align with this to achieve that? And when you start asking those questions, your life gets a lot more simple rather.
Yeah. You mentioned the glucose testing. And so I want to talk about this method of going back to testing instead of guessing. And I know you're doing functional blood chemistry analysis in your practice now. Is that something you recently added, or is that?
Yeah. So I was actually interviewing a gentleman on my podcast probably about 2 years ago, and he said functional blood chemistry, blah, blah, blah. And then he started talking about the thyroid. And after the call, I was like, what, how do you know all this? Like, how do you know stuff I've never heard about the thyroid? How do you, like, what markers are you using? What ranges are you using? Because you said so many words I've never heard before. And he's like, yep, this is functional blood chemistry. It's the art of looking for patterns in your blood work. So it's not just saying like, I don't know, if ferritin is low, it equals iron need. No. In order to understand whether or not you need iron, you need to look at TIBC, UIBC, not really your iron marker because it's not really all that reliable, iron saturation, your hemoglobin, to give you an understanding of the overall pattern of whether or not you need iron. And so the really cool thing about blood work is that it's inexpensive, it's really easy to get, and you can actually tell a lot of information from it. So after he and I had that conversation, I signed up for his course and finished his course, then did 2 other ones. And so brought that into my practice. And that has been just incredible to be able to understand a body. You know, as a nutritionist, I'd always just take what they were saying to me and I'd be like, okay, so it sounds like this is what we're dealing with, but I'd never really know, right? Other than doing functional tests, which can be rather expensive. Usually they start around $400 for hormone testing, stool testing, urine testing, saliva testing, those sorts of things to try to patch things up. But your cells are like the most simple form of your body that we are able to test. And so you can glean so much information from these, and the more markers that you have in a pattern, like for example, in the iron pattern, that's rather simple. You have your iron saturation, your TIBC, UIBC, ferritin, and hemoglobin are like the 5 markers I like to use. So if you have all of those 5 markers that are messed up, then you have a complete pattern. If you have one of those markers messed up, it's probably not an iron pattern, it's probably something else. So it really takes a lot of practice and a lot of blood work to look through and start to see those patterns time and time again. And I mean, you can see crazy stuff. Like you can see stress, you can see mast cell activation, iron anemia, other types of anemias, including B12 and folate, B6, zinc, vitamin A. You can see fungal infections, H. pylori, mouth infections, protein need, what type of diet would be best, whether or not you need more of an alkaline, or like if you're okay to do more of like a carnivore, rather like acidic diet. You can see autoimmune patterns, you can see digestive issues. Like it's a lot. It's so cool. And this is all from just basic blood work, like stuff you would get from your doctor, no fancy markers or anything crazy, just like your basic run-of-the-mill blood work. You can tell so much from it.
And this is a game changer, because so many people, I'll say a lot of clients, they come to you probably, and like they come to me after they've gone everywhere else, and they come with loads of, I took this test and I took this test and I took this and I have all this, and they like dump it on you and they're like, well, everything was normal, but I still don't feel good. I still, there's like, I don't know what's wrong with me. So you're saying that just from doing basic lab panels, does that eliminate the need to do all these different kinds of tests and things?
Yeah, great question. So yes and no. Oftentimes what the blood work will tell us is what nutrients need to be supported, what drainage pathways are blocked, whether or not the liver needs more support or the kidney needs more support, and just like the basic chemistry of the cells, so that we can understand what the cells need in order to be balanced. It can also tell us where the issues are. So for example, I use blood work a lot to determine whether or not we need to do mycotoxin testing. Now, if a client comes to me and says like, I don't have a lot of money and I'm going to do some blood work and I want some protocols, and I can do that, but I can't do any functional testing, I feel totally comfortable basing a mycotoxin or a mold protocol based on symptoms and blood work alone, that's totally fine. Same with parasites. I don't really like testing any other way other than blood work for parasites, because parasites are so hard to find, but they're not so hard to find in blood work. When it comes to like heavy metals, chemicals, those sorts of things, I do like functional testing, but it's kind of a combination of how much data do you want and how detailed do you want to get? Like if somebody comes to me with like a ton of GI issues and in their blood work, I'm seeing a digestive distress pattern, for sure, I can coach up the digestive system based on blood work, and we can kind of see how that goes, but nothing's going to beat then doing a stool test and really understanding which dysbiotic pattern they have, because I can fix that dysbiotic pattern in like 12 weeks, or I can kind of like play around with some things, see how the patterns shift in the blood work and see if that does the trick. And sometimes that works for people. If they're really in touch with their body, then it's not so challenging, because you can usually tell whether or not somebody has H. pylori versus SIBO versus parasites, and you can address accordingly. But for those people where it's a little bit more tricky to determine symptoms plus blood work, the blood work's easy enough to read, but if their symptoms are kind of all over the map, sometimes the blood work can give us better direction of just like, oh, okay, I'm really seeing a mycotoxin pattern in here. Do you want to test your home for mold, open up your drainage pathways, which basically means like get your liver working better, get your kidneys working better, and then we can test for mycotoxins in your body? Or do you just want to go to a mycotoxin protocol without testing? So it really just depends on budget and how people are motivated. If you like seeing like, yes, for sure, there are mycotoxins in your body, this is how much, and this is what our plan is, then a functional test on top of the blood work is beneficial. But I mean, you can tell so much from blood work that I have many clients that just financially don't want to do it or just aren't interested in the functional test. And then we can 100% use blood work for most things, and it's totally fine.
I think blood work is fascinating. So you have a new course now that teaches, does it teach clients how to look at their blood work? Like what's your blood work course about?
Yeah, so the blood work course I put together because in order to get the functional ranges, generally you have to pay like probably about $2,000 to join a program to get all these functional ranges. Because if you just look at your basic blood work, everything's going to look normal, because they're looking for disease states, right? Like they're waiting until things are totally terrible that they can diagnose you with a disease. We want to coach up functionality, and therefore the ranges are going to be a lot tighter, and each marker has a different range. So in order to get those ranges, I mean, you can look on the internet and get some things here or there, but I just wanted to put everything in one place with both the metric and standard requirements, because that is nowhere available anywhere. You cannot find this information. And it was so frustrating when I was reviewing blood work from like Australia or Canada or India, and it didn't match any of the ranges. So you get like a document with all of the markers that you need, all of the ranges in metric and standard, and then the reasons for highs and lows, so that you can just plug in your blood work and understand. And then I have a bunch of videos that teach you like what it's doing, why it's doing it. And it's really an introductory course, primarily for people that don't want to work with somebody and they just want to kind of figure stuff out themselves. I have a lot of clients who end up starting with the blood work course, and then they determine kind of what they need, and then they start in my root cause group, which is a group that we connect with online, and we go through root causes like opening up drainage, parasite work, mold work, metals work. And it's kind of like you're communicating with me over chat, and it's a small monthly fee where you're kind of like guided through videos, and it's a self-directed learning program. And some people like that, or some people just want to work with me one-on-one and just, Leanne, tell me what to do. Here's all the things, make special protocols for just me. So I have various ways that people can interact with it based on like what their goals are, the severity of their issues, and whether or not they want to like do it all themselves or have a little bit of a hand holding or a lot of hand holding. But the clients I work with one-on-one, ultimately, when I graduate them, I want them to be able to understand what we did, why we did it, and how to recreate that if there's an issue, because we don't live in a vacuum. Chances are you're going to deal with something in the future, and I want my clients to be equipped with that. whether you're in my root cause group, which is more self-directed, I give you a protocol, everyone's following kind of the same thing, or if it's one-on-one, I want you to walk away from it being like, wow, I've learned so much and I know how to advocate for my own health. And I know far more about what I need when I don't know, get sick in Mexico from, various bacterias or parasites that I picked up, or, go in for a test and they provide what is that metal? I'm totally drawing a blank on contrast test. And now I need to detox our metals so that you have that knowledge in order to properly detox your body and know what blood work you need and why you need it.
Yeah, it's so empowering. And it's such a
Yeah.
great feeling to know that you have given someone the tools that they need to take control of their own health. And I always say, like, it's a success to me if I never see a client again. Like, I don't want you to have to come back. Like, of course, things come up and you might need some help here and there,
back.
but
Yeah,
I don't want to work with you forever. My husband always teases me going, well, that's a bad business model.
It's like
but
you want to go out of business.
I was like, it's not, because when people feel better, they feel like they're in control. They feel like they can do something proactively and they can recognize signs and symptoms of their body. They're going to tell other people. And
oh yeah,
it's
completely. Like, I work with whole families. Like, I start with one individual and then they refer their husband and then their mom and then their sister and then their sister's husband. Like, it's incredible. And I love that. I love working with families because you already have a good sense of the exposures and all the things going on. So it becomes a lot easier. And it's so true. It's so true. It's really that delicate balance of, I'll be here if you need anything, but I hope you don't, because I hope you're equipped. And then I have clients, I've worked with a couple like for maybe 4 or 5 years, and they just check in with me every like 3 to 6 months. Hey, my digestion is feeling a little bit weird. Can we just do a stool test? Or, I just got sick. Can we see if it's bacterial or if it's viral? Can you do my blood work? And I think that's great. They're total nerds like me, and they just want to keep like poking and prodding and seeing kind of like what's up and how to learn more about their body. And that's fun too.
Yeah. And once you get into it, like, it is really fun. Like, I have my other practitioner friends and we're always on Marco Polo going back and forth because it's a weird hobby.
It really is. It really, really is.
So speaking of weird, so like, what is the weirdest wellness protocol or biohack or therapy, or what is the weirdest things you've tried in the name of health?
At the time, I thought enemas were super weird and I was really worried about doing them. I like avoided doing them for like 14 years. But once I started doing them and got comfortable with it, I'm like, why did I wait this long? And I can like truly say I've put more coffee up my butt than I've drank in my life. So like,
that's going to be the quote of the episode.
Oh man, seriously. That's probably like the weirdest. Like, I don't think it's weird anymore. And I coach some of my clients through it who I feel like it would be a good thing to try. But that's probably like the weirdest. Although, I have a vibration plate, and last night I was on the vibration plate before bed and I was like bent over, like kind of just like vibrating on it. My husband looked over at me. He's like, you are so weird. I'm like, yeah, but if I just bend over just right with my vibration plate, it gets in my face and it feels so good. And he's like, you're crazy. So
I know. Shout out to all the husbands that are
seriously
just watch us do all the weird things. Yeah, I will say the coffee enema was it for me too. And to where I couldn't, like, I don't even think I'm fully there yet. Like, I've tried it a few times, but I haven't moved from this is weird to I love this phase yet. But I did leave like my bucket in the shower one time. My husband's like, I'm out.
Yeah. So Kevin and I were sharing a bathroom until I started using enemas. And then he's like, this is your bathroom. I'm like, hey, this isn't too bad actually.
So, okay, for all the wives listening that want to have their own bathroom, now you know that's how you do it.
That's the trick.
That is the trick. Okay, is there anything new or exciting coming up for you? Let's tell our listeners, you live on a boat. Are you going to be doing any traveling or anything fun coming up?
Well, we just got back from a 6-month trip in the Bahamas, which we spend half of our time. So my husband needed to come back because he's becoming a pilot. Actually, now he is an official pilot. He's now getting his commercial license. So we're kind of like not sure where we're going to go with the boat just yet, just because Kevin's more in the sky than he's on the ocean right now with me. So it's all kind of up in the air, but clearly we don't like land. So who knows where that's going to go and things, but yeah, he's really enjoying it. I haven't flown with him yet. But hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I can get up there and see how it goes. Last time I was in a small plane, I got really sick. So hopefully the same like seasickness tools will work in the sky as they do on the sea. But yeah, I'm not sure. Probably in 2023, we'll do something awesome on the boat. I'm just not sure what that looks like yet. It's kind of usually a last minute thing. It's sort of like owning an RV and you're not really sure what you're going to do that summer, but you know you're going to use it. Kind of the same thing, but we live in it.
It's an adventure. So are you diving into the new world of like detoxing and protecting the body from air travel?
Yeah, trying to get your husband to like be okay with like H. pylori protocols and detoxing from radiation. You have to like pick apart all the things and be quite mindful about what you do, what you don't. I really like the EMF clothing. That's like super easy. The blocking clothing, super easy to like wear under your shirt. Virad Chem from Cellcore is awesome for radiation. Ares Tech, I really like for wearing EMF blocking. And lemon balm actually has been shown to reduce radiation issues in pilots. So those are kind of the tools that I'm using right now that are pretty effortless for him to do. But like getting him to buy into the whole, there's a lot of radiation in a plane situation is, well, any women who are married understand that it's not a hill you die on. So you just try your best.
And this might even be a conversation that some of our listeners might not even be familiar with. So future podcast idea to talk about the health risks of being in an airplane all the time.
Yeah, definitely. Lemon balm is a big one, a good binder.
Yeah. Okay. So what is your best advice for someone just starting out in either their career as a nutrition practitioner or health coach or something? Because the space has changed so much and it feels like everything's just online. So, I mean, this can go in any direction, but what would be like your one piece of advice for someone just starting out?
I think the most important thing that I've learned over the last like 13 years being online is to just be real and don't lie. Like, don't make up stories. Don't try to look different than you are in real life. Just be yourself. Because people see through that. And if you're trying to just like make up a story of how awesome your life is and all that stuff, nobody's life is awesome. And sharing the mess is also really important. That's if you take the direction of being more of an influencer, right? And so you kind of need to make that decision. How much of your life do you want to share? How much of you do you want to share? And do you not feel comfortable with that? And maybe you're just strictly a coach and you're sharing coaching stuff and client testimonials. And so that's a decision that you need to make. I've always been quite an open book and learn by doing myself and sharing my journey. And that's part of my business. And I've always really enjoyed that part. And so right out the gate, I was like, of course I'm going to share that I have amenorrhea and I've been taking shots and it's not working. And of course I'm going to share that I had an eating disorder for keto. I was binging and purging. I'm like, of course, right? Because that's how we connect. And that's always been really important to me. I think this is the first time in my business where I've done one-on-one consultations, and it takes so much out of you, but it is so rewarding. And I think too, making that decision, do you want a business that runs primarily without you doing much work? And so then you really need to focus on, low price and high price, like ongoing evergreen content or launches of some sort. I launched a ginormous program and ended up being Happy Keto Body a couple of years ago, where every couple of months we would open it up, we would get a bunch of students, we would run them through it. And that was super successful. And I didn't work as much as I'm working now one-on-one with clients. I now work like 10-hour days, 6 days a week. and it's a whole different thing. And you really just need to decide like what's important to you, and what works best for your schedule. Like, do you want a schedule? That's another big piece to it all. What other pieces? Get a good accountant, like somebody who understands numbers and can help you, because for the first couple of years running my business, I was working with the worst accountant and they cost me so much money. And it's worth just asking around, asking friends, even if their husbands or whatever are accountants. I ended up working with one of my good friends' husbands, and he's been working with me for a while now, and he's incredible. And so a really good accountant is like awesome. And not to get too technical, I think like we want to make everything look perfect and beautiful on our websites and stuff. But one big thing I learned early on is like, you can't do everything out the gate. Choose one thing, be really good at it. And even when it doesn't look perfect, just get it out there, because it needs to get out there and you can fix it later. So yeah, those are some of the mistakes and lessons I've learned along the way, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I mean, I will second the website. Don't worry about having a perfect website, because you'll get stuck there and you'll never work with clients because you'll be doing your website over and over forever. But
Yeah.
I also say that, yeah, showing up as, or deciding who you're going to show up as, like as authentically as you want, whether that's strictly business or if it's sharing everything, because it does translate better. And I remember when I first started, I had like my personal page and I had my business page. And first of all, trying to run 2 social media accounts is exhausting. And I felt like I was 2 different people. And so when I finally just merged it all together, it made life so much easier, because people are either going to like you or not. But it really doesn't matter, because the people who do like you for everything that you share and everything that you are in your life, those are going to be the people that are good clients. You don't want to work with people that don't like you. So
yeah,
put it out there anyways.
That's a big thing. And I'm glad you touched on it. I really love working with clients who have listened to my podcast, know who I am, know like my approach to things. They know how I work. They're hiring me because they see something in me and they think that I can help them. It's very different than when you walk into like a doctor's office and you have no idea about the doctor. You don't know their approach, and you go in there and you waste your time, energy, money on that person because your values don't align. So I think now with the internet and all the things and the podcast, you really get a sense of somebody, and that is invaluable, because oftentimes I will have people messaging me being like, here are my problems. I know that you can help me because I've heard you talk about these things. And that is just like, how cool is that? So know that whatever you're sharing, somebody's going to pick up on that, and they're going to know that you can help them before you know you can help them. So that is like the best thing. And you can really hit the ground running. And that's like the best kind of relationship.
Yep. Good. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, this has been super fun. For all of our listeners, you can follow Leanne at her website, healthfulpursuit.com. You're on Instagram. You're Leanne Vogel at Leanne Vogel on Instagram. You can find her at the Keto Diet Podcast. Am I missing anything? Where else can people find you?
Those are like the top 3. Yeah. Healthfulpursuit.com. Yep. You got it.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for celebrating our 500th episode with me. It's been fun having you on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, congratulations. It's a huge accomplishment. Thank you so much for having me.
And you're next. Yours coming up next.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, that is the end of today's episode. Our theme music is created by Andrew Bowden, and production services are by Kevin Kennedy Spain of Disc of Light Media. Have a great week, everyone.